All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title of today's episode is Driven by Thoughts Beyond Form. Okay. So, how should I begin? You see, most children on this planet hear the notion of having thoughts, but they don't wonder about what it is. Thoughts are very fascinating. They are designs that your personal experience has access to, but they are not tangible. So we can say that if a human being was wondrous or curious about the mind, they would see that the mind would come to them as a certain thought upon a certain thing. And so we have, in some sense, the story of this Buddhist patriarch named Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma was meditating. He's a patriarch of Buddhism in Japan, I believe, the fifth patriarch. Pretty much he's meditating one night, some random person comes who has an issue, has some sort of existential or experiential problem, and he comes to Bodhidharma and he says, Bodhidharma, please pacify my mind. He says, Bodhidharma, please help me. And Bodhidharma is in his deep meditation, samadhi and whatnot, so he doesn't acknowledge the guy. As the Zen story goes, the dude cuts his hand, holds it in his other hand, looks at Bodhidharma as a sign of loyalty and lack of time. And he looks at him and says to Bodhidharma, please help me. And so what happens is Bodhidharma eventually grants this guy an audience, and he says, okay, what's your problem? And then the guy looks at Bodhidharma and says, I cannot sleep at night. My mind is restless. I have so many problems, so many issues. My mind is the problem. Like I don't even care about the body. My issue is a mind issue. And so he tells Bodhidharma, please pacify my mind. These exact words. Bodhidharma looks at this guy, and there's a moment of intense silence and stillness. And Bodhidharma says, okay, I'll help you. But before, bring your mind here in front of me, and I will pacify it. You know? And so he tells the guy, this mind that is restless, this restless mind of yours, bring it in front of me, bring it in front of the table, put it on the table. And so the guy gets shocked. He gets shocked because suddenly something comes into his attention that has never been in that way. And so he suddenly realizes, he looks around and he's like, oh my God, I can't find my mind. It's like I can't find it like a box in the attic and come and bring it down, for everybody. It's not, the person can't find his mind. He looks at Bodhidharma and he says, I can't find it. He's freaking out. So Bodhidharma says, bring your mind in front of me. And he says, Bodhidharma, I can't find it. And that's where the sacred words, the heavy words of the enlightened one enter this man's ear. Bodhidharma looks at him and says, there, your mind is pacified. And he's like, Bodhidharma's just staring at this guy, and this guy suddenly gets it, and as the Zen story says, he attains moksha, not moksha, he attains nirvana. What that means is he suddenly sees it, he suddenly realizes the game that's going on. And he realizes that this mind that had made him so restless, that had made him so, in some sense, incapable of experiencing life at a very graceful level or efficient level, in some sense, you can say like 50% of the person's problems are problems that are outside of them, and the other 50 are problems that are inside. There are ways that they have considered meaning to move in the manifest world. And so this guy, this person, by the way, who cuts his hand and gets enlightened in this story, he becomes eventually the next patriarch of this, after Bodhidharma becomes the patriarch of Zen in Japan, Zen Buddhism. And so what I'm trying to say there is that the person understands something that experientially, like the mind was experiencing suffering, the experience existed. Okay, but the experience was there, but the phenomena did not exist in reality, right? And this was my biggest, in some sense, I don't know how to tell you guys, there's been moments where I've looked at the sky and I've shouted at the sky, you know. Not like in public, okay. Like in moments where I've walked alone in nature and I've suddenly realized where our civilization is heading, and I've just shouted. And it's not I've shouted at the sky or God or something like that, like commanding answers. It's been one of those situations where I've looked at this world and I've kind of put my palm on my forehead, and I've been like, world, what are you doing? And I have chosen that I chose to take the hard way. So I felt I lived in this life considering that I am wrong. I felt like everything was a sort of hollow, meaningless flaw in design. But something changed it, and that is the power of a question. It returns the soul from its slumber into its awakening. One question can direct a lifetime. You don't understand the power of language as it has been interweaved, kind of interlaced with the mind. You see, fundamentally, we use words, we use symbols. Some things that we don't comprehend, that eventually their intelligence goes into the unknown, we still give symbols for, but the symbols are left in the domain of imagination. They're left to your subtler planes of abstraction to kind of mold and maintain. So I'll give you an example. For example, I say my real name's Amin, and my online alias is Mr.Within. I mean, that's so I can say that both those names, they relate, but they don't exist unless like my individual body exists. Do you see? It's like I've had memories where I've not been a body, and I've had memories where it's like, let me tell you how, in what ways the memories of this universal sector move. They move as fields of intelligence, and they move as particles in a field. Right now, 2019, everybody, every human being, give yourself a round of applause, because you have not tried yet. we have not we have activated, we have in some sense accessed a sort of technological field of intelligence, but we have not accessed the inner field of intelligence. And it's not that we have not accessed, it's like we have not chosen to care for how experience can move if the decisions of existence varied. Life is something very beautiful to contemplate. The beautiful thing is that you get to contemplate it once in this form. And to study the mind means to study the symbology of subjective existence. So it's as if the person was looking for answers. He looked at objective questions. He's like, what is matter? Like all these deep questions that the scientific mind entertains. And then there is, in some sense, how can I tell you? After we've done experiments on objects, we decided to do experiments on subjects. So you can say philosophers are the scientists of, the mind. Neurologists are scientists of the brain, you can say. But philosophers are scientists of the mind. They are looking at the effect. So when I look at neurology, I don't dismiss the field just because I entertain a multidimensional perspective to existence. I look at neurology and I'm like, okay, they found the cause of the objective movement. Okay? They found how objectivity is formulating conception. However, why such concepts reveal can only be left to two paradigms. I remember I consider these two people I'm going to mention right now to be some of the greatest. These two were, I am so happy somehow in this life, Noam Chomsky and Michel Foucault, this French philosopher. They found a way to debate. The debate's on YouTube. It's an incredible debate because they are talking about truth. And to Noam Chomsky, it's kind of resides in the not dormant, but kind of not in our. It's like in the mysteries of the DNA comes the creativity of the mind. That's how I kind of saw Noam Chomsky engage the conversation, and Michel Foucault was engaging. This guy was engaging the conversation. This French philosopher was engaging the conversation in a different way, where he was saying, "I don't believe you can know the truth because there are factors that are inhibiting the access to that truth." So he was entertaining the notion that there could be something in the middle of this truth seeing. Okay. And of course, Michel Foucault's work, I mean, I don't know that much about him, but I know that his contribution was to bring an attention to how man's society is trying to put everything into a box. So many things that were left into many creative dimensions that were left to the nature, to the movement of nature have now been institutionalized. When you institutionalize something, you cage it. What does that mean? It's kind of like they asked, I think it was Niels Bohr, this quantum physicist, they asked him, what is quantum physics like? And he pretty much looked at the guy and he's like, okay, listen, quantum physics is like we take a cheetah in the wilderness, we take it from its natural environment, put it in a cage, and then look at what a cheetah is. So in some sense, there was a sort of discussion and a sort of debate over the unnaturalness of experiments of the natural world. One can see this similar kind of pattern also in regards to the thoughts upon reality. Right now, it's very interesting. I'm sitting down, like on this chair on my balcony, at this table, and just a second, guys. And as I'm sitting here, my mind is moving. My body is still, but my mind moves. And as my mind moves, it moves through a landscape of classification of various ways reality has meaning. Behind our eyes, we are many worlds at once. In front of our eyes, we are many particles at once. Okay? And what I mean by that is that you don't understand. Thought is a gift from the gods, it is the nectar of the fruits of paradise. We have an awareness here that we don't know and we don't care, and pretty much think of it this way. Many creatures in nature, they abide by their program of design, and so human beings, the child opens its eyes in this world wanting to fit in, wanting to kind of play the game. Okay. I find the mental I use the word mental health, but the mind for me is it's like somebody trying to measure the sky. Good luck. Good luck, psychologists in trying to figure out the depth of the unconscious. It is a fool's errand, because the fool is the limitation. Ludwig Wittgenstein, this German philosopher, he on the other hand has this, not on the other hand, but he says this very exciting, incredible actually. I find this to be one of the most powerful sentences in the English language. He says, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. The limits of my language are the limits of my world. And if children in educational systems had an interest to communicate, learn, they will never forget it. If you notice, it's very hard to remember other ways people have been, but it's much easier to remember the various ways you have been. Seldom it is said, but the notion of others extends out of the notion of the self, which is a suggestion that this personality of the human being, it starts off with a realm of greater freedom. So means your imagination comes into existence, and then your reality is like an organization upon this chaotic randomity of imagination. So what I'm trying to say is that first you became chaos. You were chaos. The ancient Greeks acknowledged kind of the origin of the universe in such a way where they said it was first chronos, chaos, and then I don't know, there's some sort of strange kind of uh, I mean it's strange now. But like in Greek mythology, kind of like the gods are born out of each other. It's weird. I mean, it's not weird metaphorically. It's weird like social. But what happens is that so there's chaos, then comes the rest, comes the various infinite universes of order. First there's the chaos. So I consider that the child's development, the child has no order. It is a moment of attention that is crystal clear prior to the dimness of the night, to the shadows of mankind's mind. So the child starts off with a freedom of able to be anything. If you take a young child and you teach it to be the greatest athlete, it will buy into the program because it doesn't know anything better. It has not even classified itself into an individual to even know what it should do. This is the alertness and awareness that many children lack. Because they lack an awareness and alertness to themselves, so they don't care about where their self is. This is how you know a person is more in their mind than in they are more behind their eyes than they are in front of their eyes. When I give these talks, I step into the realities behind my eyes. The realities behind my eyes, it's not like they're not there in front of my eyes. It's just that the realities behind my eyes have a more malleable, flexible freedom of change. That means I could imagine this, like there's a chair in front of me. I'm seeing this chair in front of me. Objectively, it is changing very slowly. Maybe after 100,000 years, if it's just left in the same location, something will happen to it, or maybe less. Okay, if it's untouched. But I'm saying at the same time, my mind can imagine this chair and suddenly can imagine it being dematerialized, like all its particles kind of decompose suddenly, and it's being evaporating out of existence in a strange way. So my mind can animate the objective change quicker than how the objective actually changes. So our minds are living with more freedom than our bodies. This is why the person has dreams. This is why the person has goals, ambitions, which are pretty much words that the person wants to make into a world. There's two things usually going on in this world. Either you are creating worlds or worlds are creating you. And to find a balance between this means to understand the voice and the elegance of nature. That was something that no human being could teach me. And I don't know, somehow strangely, I think I was a very, you know, uncommon minded, kid, because for me, it was as if I noticed something in nature that shocked my existential value. As if I saw something move and occur in nature. And I don't know how to tell you, it wasn't like something I saw how my moment was being me. It was something like that. It was an experience where I was in nature, just sitting still. I'll tell you the most profound experience, one of the most profound, I've had many profound experiences in nature, like to a level where my imagination would be even astonished by what had occurred. Like, I don't know how to tell you, but I remember in 2000, this was in 2011, these talks, Mr.Within talks, I started them in 2014. But since 2000, from 2000, it was like 13, I believe, like at the end of 2012 to 2013, I started writing first before I started speaking. And I was living a very simple life. You don't understand. I was living in like I was raised in Iran, and I had lived in Canada. Like at the age of 7, I came to Canada, and pretty much I was like, how can I tell you? I was living as simple as a farmer, but in with the responsibilities and the intensities of modern society. So I was being a very simple person, as if like you don't understand. I felt my imagination kind of didn't exist. When I was young, I felt my as a field of intelligence, I had not sprouted into my body yet. So I feel like my childhood, I have a very vague memories, very few memories. But the reason is because my it's as if there's this very ancient, extremely esoteric idea of God entering the body. When I say God entering the body, this doesn't mean like some other entity on some veiled ignorance of a dimension. I'm saying like this means the clarity of true the clarity of existence also finds the clarity of experience. On an existential dimension, objectivity has meaning. Your existence is made of objects, let's say. Your experience is made of subjects. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You contain existence in matter, and you contain experience in consciousness. And this dance of consciousness and matter, the ancients have always acknowledged it, you know? So many things that people think they're figuring out for the first time are just patterns echoing in this river of thought and matter. I found myself suffocating in the way I was living. Often there's been a couple times in this life I've experienced something where it's not like the person is choking, but the person is so disconnected from their own ability to be not disconnected that in some sense it's like you don't know how many people, I believe, walk in this world feeling as if they are not enough. And I remember I was having a dissatisfaction. It was as if like I had a sales job back then too. You know, this is 2011 and whatnot. And I was this totally ego driven, arrogant kind of, how can I tell you? I'll be honest. Like if I saw myself back then, I'd probably tell myself stop being an asshole, you know. And so there was this ignorance because I felt the world had to listen to what I want, or I had to, in some sense, get. How can I tell you? It was the sales mentality is very dangerous. It's kind of like a martial art, but with language. So salespeople, they know a unique sort of martial arts, you know, but they know it in language. So they have this notion that it's like they detach from the words, they keep it on an emotional level, and they just like, uh, I don't know. I'm happy I did it only for a few months, and I got out of that kind of Red Cross door to door job. I learned a lot of valuable lessons there, but trust me, it's not worth living a program when you are the programmer of your experience. That means so many people feel obligated to exist in ways that, in honesty, if they really looked at it, they wouldn't even want to exist in that way. So the thing is, the individual, this is the problem of thinking you're just a person, you're just an individual. Because the individual can potentially overwhelm itself with how it conceives the perfection of the collective. So suddenly the person feels they can't do anything. Because they can't do anything, they become a hedonist. But underneath that hedonism, there's a sort of nihilistic despair. And that nihilistic despair is unnecessary. Let me tell you why it's unnecessary. Because there is something here. If there was nothing here, like this is why nihilism is a kind of trap, because you can't ignore the somethingness that is looking into that nothingness. Okay, so it's as if the eyes of the world are open as human beings. There's something here. There are intelligent winds kind of moving on the surface of this planet. Right now, I'm pouring coffee from a flask into a cup, and that's the same way I feel. In some sense, reality has been made into a thought. It is cake random data put into a container. So the most uniqueness of the divine factor. So what is miraculous about life is not how just things are here, but what is miraculous of life, how there is something here that is aware it is here. That is where the mystical quest in some sense is initiated. It is initiated out of an authentic wonder to rediscover your true nature. You have that attitude, don't worry, you don't need teachers. Your moment of being becomes your teacher. There's no greater teacher, nothing else. I am telling you, every external form is a reflection of your inner universe. Study it. First, begin with the distinction. You can choose. It's as if like a person choosing where they want to start on a mountain. The Zen master kind of, not Zen master, but I'd say like the Zen attitude toward they have. There's the Zen proverb that says, if you want to climb a mountain, start at the top, and that is so important. Because so many people don't understand what that means. You want to climb a mountain, start at the top? That's ridiculous. Then why do you even have the word climb if you got to start at the top? And at the same time, this doesn't mean give your ego like a gift and at the same time be like, okay, ego, you're the greatest. Ta-da! Whatever you choose will change. And strangely, if you are alive, whatever that has changed, you will in some sense consider if it was your choice. You see, this is the whole victim mentality. There's something that I remember when I was attending university. When I was attending university, there was there was this event where this guest speaker was coming in the orientation and whatnot. And the guest speaker was this man whose sister, I'll just be very blunt and honest about it. It was this very profound speaker. Like it was one of the most, I found one of the most incredible, like necessary things I saw. Anyways, what was it? Pretty much this person was coming to speak about the pretty much sexual harassment in universities and in university dorms and campuses. And this guest speaker for the orientation of the university, this person came and in some sense said that he shared this story of how his sister was in some sense harassed, sexually assaulted in university, and the sister calls his brother, calls him, the guest speaker, and says to the guest speaker, tells the guest speaker what happened, but the sister is such a strong woman that she says to the brother, "Are you okay?" Like the sister, excuse my language, but she got raped, and she calls her brother. She's so strong. She calls her brother and says, "Listen, this happened to me. Are you okay?" Like she's saying it to the brother, you know. It's as if the strength of the will of the peak of the mountain. But anyways, and the brother who was the guest speaker was sharing this story to all these kids in that auditorium, and was saying to us that in some sense, uh, she was his shock. The reason he started to become a guest, like the speaker, to go to universities and share his story, was because the sister asked him, "Are you okay?" To a point where he suddenly saw, oh my God, how many people are not aware of what goes on in the shadows of this world. And so what we find, and psychologists have even dived into this to some degree, and of course what I'm sharing here is, um, it basks in my views, but I'll share it like this. What was very significant, and why I'm bringing this story up, is because when you study psychology, and the same psychological questions that one asks about their existence can be reflected into any object or any objective situation. So the depth of a question can enter many questions. Okay? because it's an attempt to open up the world. Anyways, when person goes through harassment and goes through an experience of, you know, the person who has been a victim of an unfortunate and unnecessary circumstance, they have to contemplate what has happened to them in a certain way. Okay? It doesn't matter if it could be the same with a child who's riding a bike and the child falls. The child has to contemplate what has occurred to it in manifestation in a certain way. So the person who goes through an experience where they are, in some sense, they are breaking, a part of their reality is breaking. Excuse me, guys, my attention was kind of pulled. The person goes through some sort of intense chaotic experience. They wonder about, okay, this messed up thing happened, what do I do now? The person has two options. Okay, they in some sense will begin to distrust life. What that means is they will feel like life treated them in a way they didn't deserve. When you feel that, you get this subconscious hate, okay, for the world. When you feel like you were not given a chance, you know, whenever you feel that, and it's always referentially. Anyways, the person blames themselves or blames the world. If the person blames themselves, they will start functioning with a mindset that there is something wrong with them, that the chaotic incident occurred. And if they think it's just the world, they think there's nothing wrong with them, it's the world that was messed up, that happened. And to accept both these ends is kind of, I find invalid, because it's a combination of both. As if your intelligence chose to make certain decisions, but at the same time, the intelligence of your environment also chose to make certain decisions. So it has to do with just what happened and how can I tell you? It's like sometimes, it's like, have you noticed you never know what your mistakes are until they happen? You know, you never know what you couldn't do unless you see you couldn't do it. For me, life is actually a feedback loop of image and patterns or systems or combinations of how images or themes exist. So an image is not an image when there's someone looking at it. There's more in the moment. So this mentality of somebody who has been treated by chaos, and they have to, of course, reconsider order. The most greatest thing that people should realize that, okay, guys, this is, first of all, our ancestors, they fought in battlefields. So this modern wave in 2019, I'm getting, it's kind of breaking my heart a little, because I'm like, are you serious, humanity? Because, because I see in 2019 there is this wave going on where it's as if the technological era actually connected us, but it connected us under the condition that we weren't talking to people. We became, it's as if technology replaced our mouths, okay, our mouths and ears. So it's as if right now people are speaking and communicating less with one another. They are online, digitally communicating in various formats. It's a sort of escapism of confronting actual reality, and realizing the opportunity cost of that is that you don't maintain the skill. You don't understand. Your DNA preserves certain potentials in a sort of, I'll attribute it to a genetical memory, where if you choose to live differently, different abilities and skills and patterns in your kind of evolutionary foundations, kind of it steps forth. You don't understand. When your eyes change, so does the world. That's what I'm saying. So the person has to take a responsibility, where I consider Buddha said this. I don't know who you are listening to this talk. I don't know how many people will listen to this talk. I don't know how long I will be even around to speak about this stuff. You know, it's a temporary world. I acknowledge it. I understood this when I lost like a certain amount of my talks. These, like, I've recorded a lot of these, but I've uploaded a few. I've uploaded maybe 1/5 of all that I've recorded. And there's been times where I've recorded many hours and suddenly the whole thing has been kind of deactivated or something deleted. And when that has occurred, when I have lost something of incredible value to myself, myself has broken. That's the issue with love also, you see? But that when it's as if you see this in certain movies or certain stories, you see that there's this context of these two great warriors, but they are also lovers. So it's like this couple, this man and a woman, both great, incredible fighters, but when one of them dies, the other suddenly is dead too. It's as if love is when two moments of being find themselves as one. That means there's a contentment of freedom, as if the freedom of the mind of one person and the freedom of the mind of another person have found themselves, as if you and your lover are looking at the same sky, you know. So this notion of responsibility and individual identity and how to even go forth when chaotic things happen is to acknowledge, first of all, it's a changing world. And again, I'm going to emphasize this. In Buddhism, the Buddha was kind of like, listen, guys, regardless of your sense of companionship, any sort of companionship or community or collective thing that happens for you, that's a blessing. That's a blessing. That's extra. Because in this life, you're born alone and you, in some sense, leave alone. So you have entered a party where in this party, the whole party is building like this human project called human civilization. This human civilization is here for a while, so you have entered the world through your solo eyes, okay? So first you got to find contentment with loneliness. You got to understand you have entered this world and there will come a moment you will exit. So just acknowledge this and be comfortable with it. It's like a how can I tell you? All our ancestors have gone through this. It shouldn't be too hard for us either. So there will come a time where this system of biological intelligence will stop. It will stop being itself the way it is. This is why we have to entertain this what if mentality of how do we engage? Like every day happens once, we are alive once. How should we live? How should existence move in through the experience of our eyes? And then something very unique happens. When you can accept yourself, you can accept others. If you can't accept yourself, you will infinitely try to break that which you have not accepted in yourself and others. You will become an enemy of the world, but you're actually an enemy of your mind and you don't see the world. You become a Hulk in society. This is the troublesome kind of complexities that arise with the ego. What is the ego? It is the thought of self. What is the thought of self? It is in whatever moment the person is existing in, how the environment and how their response and intelligence in the environment and how the dance of their imagination and their memory is being them. A sentence I've kind of written that I'm very proud of is be free before you need to be. And it's honestly inspired very similarly to that Zen saying, if you want to climb a mountain, start at the top. So every human being must cultivate the ability to be able to acknowledge true data without the imposition of their assumptions and bias. When you do that, some unique intelligence comes to you. This unique intelligence is not a judge. That means you don't have to constantly put things into thoughts. You can watch life happen as a moment of life. There's a sort of simplicity. Now, the person who goes through these, let's say a person goes through a chaotic experience, that chaotic experience is it's as if something, it's like a way their mind is alive, their body cannot abide by. So like as if the person didn't expect something to happen and suddenly the thing happened. So as if the mind had a certain way the value of the projection of the world was being kept, but suddenly how the objective aspect of the moment kind of moved and experienced reality kind of disproved the mind's validity. So it's a moment of invalidity. When something chaotic happens to someone in any form or matter, it doesn't matter what it is, that chaos, it can only be chaos if it breaks something. Okay, when the organization that was kept before of how the world, like as if your mind had organized the world in a certain way, suddenly this experience disorganized your mind. It pushed back your assumptions of self. It pushed you into an unknown. Okay? I'm not sure how to say it. It's kind of like on some in one manner one can, it's like we're not just an air in a balloon that will return to the sky. We are a sort of design. Study life as a designer first, then as any sort of conceptual oriented profession. This is the unique thing. I feel that when you look at the unknown and acknowledge the unknown, knowledge has to listen to it. So chaos and chaotic experience is something unknown happening to the knowledge, or how much the being knows. Something unknown happens. This something that unknown happens, it can be constantly interpreted into the known, but that's because the person still thinks they're a thought. You know, this is something all those enlightening kind of gurus, they forgot to tell their disciples before they told them to meditate. Because when they meditate, they're like, man, I got too many thoughts here. What can I do? You know, and the enlightened guru's like, don't think, buddy. And that enlightened guru was wrong, because it's like, it's not that you can think. It's just that it's a detachment from thought. Those are two different things. A detachment from thought, that means you're not doing anything with the thought. It doesn't matter if the thought comes to you or goes. It doesn't matter how thought moves. It's the observer, the presence of the observer within the object and subject of observance that is where the true intelligence arises. So the person has to eventually see something's happened. How do you want to pursue? And so for me, this is the unique relationship I have with the past. I caught on, you guys, this was so shocking when I understood it. I was like walking in the street, and suddenly when this light bulb went on, I was shocked. As if this light bulb had the light of a supernova explosion, you know? And I suddenly realize every day I'm waking up, my sense of past is different. And it shocked me. Some days I remember I sat down one day thinking, man, this life is too long. Why is life so long? You know? And then I remember sitting one moment and I'm like, oh my God, this life is too short. Nothing can be accomplished. And so I notice I'm having different days, different senses of past. So I realize, oh my God, the past and future are projections of the moment. Therefore, the moment is purely this. It's like your knowledge is being spoken about on a rock in the middle of nowhere. And nowhere, when we've kind of looked at it and looked at the depth of space, suddenly with that space between the word, we are now here. So nowhere is actually now here. You must watch what occurs and realize that regardless of the past, like the sage said something incredible. He said, the past is past. When the past is past, you can't do anything about that memory or imaginative construct. Some say, walk this world as if you have walked it many times before. Some say, walk this world until you reach the peak of the mountain. And some people say, walk this world until you no longer need feet. And that's when the pilot of consciousness is not born, but it is the it is the remembrance of the unborn being. There's something here that it doesn't belong to human knowledge, and it is here. It is just here. It is how here is being here. And there's a sort of attributeless instantaneity of its being. So that means you can't study the effect of a cause or the cause of an effect because it is too instantaneous. So the only thing, it's like you're trying to do something that you can only be. And when you try to be it, you suddenly realize you are being something. And when you really study what that something is, you suddenly realize how nature is opening your eyes. And eventually you will realize many obstacles come. That's the game of this world. That means some children are like, please, I want to buy like a game console, to their parents or something. And so the parent is like, son, you are in a video game. God damn it. We all are. People are trying to find truth. Therefore, they're trying to find an infinite void. They will be led towards the infinite and the void. But seldom this is said that truth must be created. You must be an artist when it comes to truth. Because you must learn from how the world draws itself and how you draw the world. I'm saying that when you draw the world, it is very possible that you can just start with the consideration of efficiency. So as if the person, rather than moving from imperfection to perfection, is moving from perfection to greater perfection. Therefore, his imperfections are perfect. What that means is whatever happens in life can be utilized as a value. Our ancestors found sticks and stones and made fire. We have to take every data accessible to us in the moment, including various experiences, and to see how useful they are. You know, for example, somebody who goes through a chaotic experience, years later, they might suddenly be a novelist, and that chaotic experience adds a depth to their to a character in their book that they're like, wow, some things maybe were meant to happen. The world is a very mysterious place, but the mystery exists in our eyes, and our eyes are being us. So study life. It is the opportunity of a lifetime. So eventually, I guess to do justice to the title, how can a person be driven by thoughts beyond form? It is when you realize your mind is being your moment and your moment is being your world, and your mind is containing itself as a thought or in a thought. And so when you wonder beyond thought, you're wondering beyond the forms of manifestation. And what you come to is, I'll say it like this, you come to an unknown mirror. When you come to that unknown mirror, it's like your knowledge is looking at itself and it's like, whoa, is this just me? And so your mind begins to remember. It begins to remember how it moved prior to its individualization as a collective being. Pretty much what I'm saying is we all are entertaining 2019 in regards to how consciousness can be seen, is that it's as if it's raining from the heavens and the raindrops are falling from the heavens, being like, man, what's the point of life? We're all like solo, kind of like, in some sense, we're these tiny drops, we can't do anything, and we're just falling, we're just existing meaninglessly, and da 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 da. Eventually, in a vertical dimension of extraction of meaning, we see that the drop is like, right, the drop is just this individual thing falling from the heavens, similar to how Adam's mistake dropped him into the non-celestial, you know, or the non-paradisal. You know, I don't know. That's probably not a word, but non-heavenly. And so what I'm trying to say is that in the vertical dimension of the raindrop falling, the raindrop falls into an ocean. When it falls into an ocean, it's a horizontal dimension. So the journey of individual consciousness is that individual consciousness vertically has such a meaning, you know, but horizontally, once the drop makes contact with the ocean, it is the ocean. Don't freak out, because energy cannot be owned. And so the conscious continuity of experience has to do with the relationship of individual existence with collective experience, and collective existence with individual experience. Once these domains are studied, the advanced communicators and the pilots of consciousness of this wonderful humanity of ours, this wonderful science project, that after 4 billion years we are here. We are here, ladies and gentlemen. We are alive. We are existing. There's something called the free will, which means you can always click the refresh button on the browser of life. All the values that think phenomena has, you can revalue it. It's a changing world. The values change inevitably too. And we are in this world of exploration. What else can we do? So any person who is bored, it's because you are staying in your comfort zone. And the comfort zone, conceptually, I don't even like that idea, because it's meaningless. There's nothing is comfortable when you're in a changing world. There's no such thing as comfort. There's only advancement. And this advancement is not heartless. It's not just outcome based. Sometimes when you live for the future too much, you become heartless and cold. What that means is, rather than helping a living human being in front of you, you're like, okay, does it serve me to help this person in the future? Like, get out of here, man. Like, you see, that mentality is so many people are trying to steal their truths from the world. But it is only grace. It is only through gentleness where the genius of the mind of the species will step out. You don't understand. it's like, don't think the world only has problems. A problem cannot exist without an answer, and an answer cannot exist without a problem. Therefore, if you have problems in your life, trust me, the answers are there, but the answers are either in your subconscious or your unconscious domain, or in some sense, you have to create it. Some things don't have an answer because no person was ever in the condition that you find the person finds himself. Our eyes are new, yet they are made from an ancient world. It's like, imagine like the scientists. I don't understand why they don't. Maybe some scientists do. You should tell a child, hey son, do you know that you're made of atoms right now, and these atoms are stardust? The son would be like, whoa, dad, what is this you're talking about? And the guy would be like, science, and the kid would become a scientist. Yeah. The issue is that regardless of whatever scientific finding we find, science is entering the moment of being of the person. Scientific findings, that data, is entering a sort of moment of the being where there's imagination and memory. Because there's imagination and memory, that means it's like, it's fine to experiment objectively, but how we are alive as personalities is not just limited to objective data. And so, of course, the cloak of humility and gratefulness must be worn. Acknowledge the majestic presence of existential phenomena as a moment of experience. Usually those people who want to get rich, they ignore their own wealth. There's this medic story of the two birds. Pretty much there's this tree, there's these two branches. On the bottom branch, we find a bird that's building a nest, feeding its kids, just working nonstop from the beginning of its existence to the end. Then we have on the higher branch a bird, the same looking bird, but this bird is, in some sense, how can I tell you, is still and silent and is not moving at all. And so these two branches and these two, which are the same bird, it's a metaphor for the state of consciousness of the being, where there is a part of you that is just infinite movement, and there's a part, like, it's kind and there's a part of you which is just a present stillness and silence. You don't understand. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that, but our eyes are a portal between the objective realm and the subjective realm. Our senses are. The body is made of earth, the mind is made of sky. The soul is beyond the sky of conceptual thought. Every person must realize the burden of that we carry. It's like, it's very easy to just live for yourself, but it's much harder to live for a world that needs assistance. And its assistance is not being given to it out of pity. You shouldn't try to save the world. The world doesn't need saving. The world needs advancement. It needs a sort of awakening progress, an awakening to its own progress. So, anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. I think soon I'm gonna set up this Discord thing, because conversations are exciting, but when conversations integrate, they open up a level of depth that it's like as if like a canvas with more colors on it. Beauty is more seen. So, anyways, guys, much blessings and namaste. May the eyes of the personality remember their true presence. And guys, I gotta say one more thing actually that's coming to my mind. This person asks his guru, this disciple asks this guru, where is truth? Where? The guru looks at the disciple and says, where can it be? And in that silent stare down is the ambience of man's effort to move beyond, through, and as the unknown. Or as, through, and beyond the unknown. We're all on a rock in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like, knowledge is a nice show, but it is not the truth. Much blessings and all.